Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you could join us. I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who I'm talking with today, Nelson Almeida.
I've been a person who stutters since I was a child. I grew up going through speech therapy my entire life. I started at 3 years old, all the way through grade school, and then again in college. And that's when I found avoidance reduction therapy, which greatly helped me. And now I'm a physical therapist working just outside of Baltimore, Maryland, and I love it.
And what population are you working with right now? Are you working with a certain population, or are you like specializing in any kind of area of the body, or yeah?
Great question,
A
Nick.
little
I
more.
am actually a board certified orthopedic clinical specialist, which
Okay.
is actually less than 1% of physical therapists across the nation. I did my residency out of Next Gen Institute in 2018, and now I treat every part of the body in an orthopedic setting. I do a little bit of sports as well. I also personal train on the side, and I also treat vestibular rehab. And I treat all spectrums of all ages, ranging from infants and toddlers all the way up to geriatric populations.
So when I reached out to Nelson about talking, um, I did that because he's a friend, but also because he has this story of asking people on dates, or like, yeah, going through that experience, and like being right. It was something you were working on being more comfortable with, is like approaching someone you were interested in, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it all started when I was in avoidance reduction therapy with Vivian Siskin at the University of Maryland. It was about 2012, and I was a junior or senior in college. And at that point, I was working on not only um, open stuttering, instead of using tricks trying to get my stutter out so that I could be more forward moving and a better communicator. And then on the side, I also had a goal of overcoming a fear of mine, which for my entire life was talking to women. I would become very, very uh, fearful, afraid, and just to give you a little bit of perspective, I never thought that I could get married because I was just so afraid of approaching a woman. And then even if she approached me and was interested, I was scared to say I do in front of friends and family. And I thought to myself, okay, I have overcome a lot so far in avoidance reduction therapy. So I'm going for this one. And I got onto a dating app, and I decided, all right, I am going to meet a new person. I'm I'm going to go on a date and stutter with them simultaneously.
Mm.
So I sign up for the first one, and I get to the location. We're actually meeting at the National Zoo, and I'm standing there, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Oh my God, I'm freaking petrified right now. My armpits are all wet, and and my palms are clammy, and and I'm thinking through everything. I have butterflies inside of my stomach, and she shows up, and and we start talking, and I'm stuttering, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. And then I get into it, and a couple hours later, I realize that time has flown by, and I have another date that I was supposed to meet up with about 15 minutes ago. And so I go, oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. It was great meeting you. Let's hang out again. And then I met up with another girl, and this went on for many Saturdays where I would schedule a meetup for, say, 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 7 p.m. And I quickly realized that it is really exhausting, but through it, I not only desensitized to meeting new people, but I also desensitized to listener reactions and to the fact that um, I can talk to a girl stutter and not um, fall apart. And so through many months, I ended up going on 100 first dates.
That's a lot. And was that a target you had set, or you just happened to hit 100, or you hit 100 and you married that girl, or give us some more context.
Well, a lot of people ask what came of all the dates. Well, not too many second dates, honestly, because I think that people could sense that the situation was rushed and it just didn't feel right and organic, which makes sense. But um, I also wasn't nitpicky in who I met up with. I was willing to meet up with anyone who
Yeah.
wanted to meet. And so through it, I enjoy getting to know people and I try not to put any expectations or pressure on the situation. But it just happened naturally. I didn't plan on doing 100. It just started snowballing. And just like all other aspects of avoidance reduction therapy, it's fun. Once you overcome a fear, you feel like doing it more and more.
Mm.
And then it got to the point where, okay, I met this really nice girl. She was in vet school. We started dating. So I stopped going on first dates. I carried over those skills to be able to approach women in different places, at coffee shops, at gyms, on the beach, and different places like that. And it's definitely not a problem now, but I'm very glad that I did that, but I don't think I could do it now if I tried. It was just so emotionally exhausting.
Mm. Tell us more about that. So, like, when you were going into that first well, did you start this process with the hope of like working on your fear of approaching someone, or going on a date with someone, or did this start with like trying to find a partner, and then it like evolved into a speech assignment, or like a speech work also, or how did it start?
It started as a form of doing speech work. I actually was joking about the premise of it with someone else in the group, and he actually joked about joining me in on one. And I said, yeah, yeah, that's so funny, right, right. And so I scheduled one, and we were hanging out at his place, and I go, I gotta go. And then my friend goes, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going on that date. And the friend goes, I'll come with you. And I go, no, you won't. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm serious. So he puts on his shoes and then he walks out with me. And this poor girl, she's just moved from Boston, and we're in Pentagon City, meeting at a shopping mall. And and I go, hi, I'm Nelson. I'm a person who stutters, and this is my friend here who also stutters. And so she ended up spending almost 3 hours with us, and she had a great time, and
No.
I did too. And it was such a good time for all parties. Um, I I kept wanting it to do it, so that encouraged me, and I I got to meet a lot of different personalities, and I always think that you can learn something from everyone. And so I enjoy meeting people, even if I don't think there's any romantic potential there.
Do you feel like stuttering has enabled you to connect more with other people at times, or at times has it like taken away your ability to connect with other people? Yeah, right.
It has by far been a huge asset for connecting with people, especially in my role as a physical therapist. When you have something that makes you more vulnerable, I think people uh, trust you more. it builds rapport. And I think it shows people that I'm human too. I'm not better than you. Everyone's struggle is different, and I'm not placing judgment. So I think that stuttering in pretty much every realm has been very productive for me. I think it's made me a good listener as well, but also made me realize that there are many people out there who are fluent who are not good communicators. And stuttering really doesn't have to do with whether you communicate well or not.
Yeah, like when I get on an airplane and I either tell someone I stutter or I stutter so much that they just kind of figure it out. Um, I feel like oftentimes if we end up talking about like what I do for work as a speech therapist and I mention stuttering and I talk about how I stutter, I feel like oftentimes I learn more about them than if I just was like, oh yeah, I'm a speech therapist. I work in a school. Um, and I feel like sometimes people on the airplane are more vulnerable with me, and we have a richer conversation and a more intimate conversation. Right? Sometimes we don't. Sometimes I put on my headphones and I'm in my zone and I don't want to talk to anyone because I'm exhausted or whatever. But yeah, when you were going on these dates, were you always disclosing, or were you always talking about stuttering?
And to be honest, early on, I had so much fear that I was trying to hide it. Unfortunately, I was falling into my covert patterns where I would use my most typical tricks like and But then as I started doing it more and I got on day 20, 30, and 40, I started to work on my speech assignments during the actual dates. So I would go in there and say, all right, the first 5 minutes or the first 2 minutes that I speak to this person, I'm going to open stutter the whole time, or I'm not going to use any us. And I was mostly successful doing that. And the listener reactions were actually not as bad as I expected, but more importantly, is I think that the connection was a lot better when I was open about my speech pattern. Because when I wasn't, it just led to a really strange phrasing and a strange pattern in my speech. Because I would say, my name is a Nelson, or my name is Nelson. I would put pauses where they don't belong, and it just
Mm.
interferes with understanding. And the adding of onto so many words is definitely can change how people perceive it, because a lot of people thought my name was a Nelson.
Funny, yeah, right. Especially if you're saying it enough, right? If you are saying Nelson, right? And it's not like, I don't know. It sounds like that could totally be a name.
It could be, it could
Yeah,
be, but it's not my name, and
yeah,
that's why I should.
yeah. So have you seen that airplane effect? Um, anywhere else in your life where you talking about it and enables you to connect more with other people? So you've seen it right when you're dating people. Anywhere else?
Yeah, definitely in the workplace, and definitely in just meeting anyone, male or female, when you're your true authentic self, I think that people just vibe better with you. It puts a more easy energy out, because when I'm trying to hide my stutter, there's more tension in the delivery, and that tension can turn into struggle. And I think that one block is much more interfering than many frequent disfluencies, because if I got stuck on my name is my name is uh, my name is my name is Nelson, that's a showstopper, and that really takes away from the meaning of your message, and I think it's really distracting for the listener. So for me, I have found that open stuttering is the best way of communicating with people so they can understand me.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but the name of the YouTube channel is called Open Stutter.
Perfect.
Because right, because we are, I think, and it sounds like you also think that it's a really great thing to be able to stutter openly in a forward moving way with sound in a way where we're not blocking or don't have, you know, a, too much struggle where it just feels overburdening to be able to communicate.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I have really enjoyed communicating since I started showing my stutter. I think when I was trying to hide my stutter, I wasn't very successful at it. I was most successful by not talking. So I just wouldn't share my opinions, my thoughts. I avoided social situations. When I was, for instance, typically throughout college, when I was invited somewhere, I would say no. For instance, I had dorm mates who invited me out to eat at the diner, and I would just make an excuse, say, "Oh, I have a lot of homework I have to study for."
Mhm.
And then there was this one time actually where they all invited me, and I said, "No, I can't. I have stuff going on." And they're like, "Come on, come on." I said, "No." And then I got really hungry, and I went into the diner, and I had to like hide from them because I was so adamant about not going that I had
Oh
to
my
sit like all the way in a corner and then put the newspaper over my face as I'm eating. So I don't seem as if I'm, that rude where I don't like them. And I did want to eat with them. I was just too scared. And I let stuttering rule my life. Every single moment was
God.
guided by avoided stuttering. I felt like a prisoner
Mm.
in chains. Very frustrating.
Yeah. Do you feel that way anymore?
Oh no, I feel so liberated. Now I can't shut up. Yep. I just enjoy getting to know new people. I do travel a lot, just like you do, and one of the best parts of traveling is meeting other people.
Mm.
And I could have never done that even 10 years ago before starting avoidance reduction therapy. Prior to that, the focus of therapy was to speak fluently, and I'm just not neurologically capable of speaking fluently. And rather, I can't control if I stutter, but rather how I stutter. And so I have focused on pausing and phrasing and just being coherent and enunciating well instead of adding uhs and ums.
Nelson, as you were talking, I wanted to ask a little bit ago um, about when you're in the workplace, right? And you're talking about how just connecting with other people. I feel like when you're talking about stuttering and connecting with someone because you're sharing something like that on a date, it's a very different environment than in the workplace, right? And so, how does that look for you, right? You're obviously not going to be like doing a physical therapy session with somebody. You're like, well, let's go on a date and grab a bite to eat, and I'll tell you my life story, and we'll talk, and we'll, I'll show you these stretches and core work to help your lower back, right? What does that look like for you? How do you connect with people through stuttering in the workplace?
That's a great question. So when I'm given, when I'm doing an intake, that's when I'm first meeting my patient, and I don't make stuttering a thing. I just stutter. I show them I am a person who stutters by stuttering, and there's nothing wrong. I know there are people who advertise who start up front with just telling someone that they stutter. But what I have found is that I will just speak the way that I speak, And if I can tell that it's taking away from the content, from the message, that the patient seems a little distracted, then I will then formally tell them, hey, I am a person who stutters, and you might notice postponements or interjections into my speech. If there's anything that they don't understand, please let me know so that I can clarify for you. Because the focus there is not about doing speech work for me, it's rather on the patient, on the client. I don't want to take away from their experience, and I want for them to know what's going on and be at ease with the situation.
So you bring it up, or you like verbally say something about stuttering or stutter or being a person who stutters when
Yeah,
when you feel like it's distracting the patient or the
yes.
patient is thinking about it.
Yeah, or not only that, but if I know I'm struggling and I'm having long postponements and I feel like I should explain what's going on because maybe they think that I don't know what I'm talking about or maybe I'm nervous, I think that conveys that no, I am confident, I know my content, but rather this is just how I speak. And right now I'm having a struggled moment.
Has it always been that way? Have you always, like during your first year of work, is was that always your approach? The talk about it if they're thinking about it.
No, actually, when I first started as a student at a clinical rotation, I would start off every evaluation with I'm a person who stutters, da da da. I had this whole spiel,
Okay.
and the instructor took me aside after the first couple weeks in the clinical rotation and said, "Why do you start off with this?" And I said, "Well, I do it to put the patient at ease, uh, and also to put myself at ease." And the instructor. Now, I think this isn't necessarily the right advice, but his opinion on the matter was they don't care. It doesn't matter. It seems like you're doing it more for you than for them, and that the patient isn't so much focused on your speech pattern. They just want to get better. And I think that I was making it a little bit about me, but I've also just gotten to the point where I don't have as big of a reaction to the listener's reaction. So what I mean by that is I've desensitized to bad reactions from people.
Hmm.
So for me, it's not as stressful or as anxiety inducing. So I don't feel the need to.
Do you think that was helpful advice for you in that moment, or that advice was right? Like, did you agree with that advice, and or were you ready for that advice or that idea?
Those are great questions, Nick. And at the time, I wasn't sure how I thought about it. First of all, I was shocked that he even brought it up because most faculty members don't even touch the topic that I studied. They pretend as if I don't even do it. They pretend like everything is just typical,
Yeah.
but it's not typical. And this guy addressed it, so I respected him for that. And he was straightforward about it. Now, I wasn't too sure about that, and I ran it by a couple of other people who stutter in my group therapy, and I think everyone has different opinions on the topic. But for me, it actually made a lot of sense because I noticed that when I was proactively advertising, it made me feel more uncomfortable and more awkward. And when I stopped advertising, I actually felt more comfortable in the session, which I think is different than what I've heard from a lot of other people.
Yeah, and it sounds like your process kind of evolved based off of what you needed.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think early on I was just really nervous and concerned about what the patients would think of me, if they would trust me, if they would see me as competent. Because truly, in the back of my mind, I thought, I think imposter syndrome is common for a lot of
Mhm.
novice clinicians, and I didn't think I could help people. But then once you're out in the field and you've seen good results, you start to feel more confident.
Nelson, I just wanted to say that I also really like how you were sharing that, like, it seems like in your career path with like being a physical therapist and being a person who stutters, the focus, especially it seems like now, has shifted from you and your own stuttering to the patient and what the patient needs and the patient's understanding, right? It
Oh
seems
yeah.
like it seems like to me that you're still self-disclosing in a way through just stuttering and showing them stuttering, but you're only making it a topic of conversation if it's distracting the the patient, which is impacting the therapy you're providing, right? Because of just their
Right.
attention. And
Right.
so I love that switch from me to like them, the person I'm working with. And I feel like that's probably common in a lot of professions for a lot of other things too. This like inward focus versus outwardly focused on the client or patient.
And I think I can manage that as long as I maintain my congruency as a person who stutters. I think the issue becomes if I try to hide that I stutter. So if I'm not advertising and I'm also not stuttering
Mm.
falsely through using tricks. I don't need to stutter on purpose. I don't need to voluntarily stutter during the session, but I also don't want to hold back either.
And we should have mentioned this at the beginning, but for everyone out there, tricks are just our words or our language for anything we're doing to hide stuttering
Right.
that isn't related to normal talking. So maybe that's closing your eyes when you're stuttering, moving your head, tapping your leg, going back, going back in, going back in, going back and starting over again, right? It's anything you're doing that isn't kind of the usual talking. Nelson, thank you so much for your time, for jumping on and chatting. I really enjoyed it.
It's been fun, and thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, you got it.